Speaking of at play, let's shift a little bit to the product and maybe look to the future a little bit. It's useful to just engage in this exercise. So 5 years down the road, let's talk about two things. Let's talk about sports and sports wagering. Clearly, on this stage, we're going to have that conversation here in a few moments. Where do we see sports wagering in the gaming landscape? And also, the two S's here, what about skill games or skill-based games? Obviously been a hot topic, obviously also intersecting with regulation and policy, as is sports wagering. Where do we see all of that playing out? Maybe we'll start with you, Tim.
Well, first on the sports side, I'd be shocked 5 years from now if we don't have the removal of the federal prohibition of expanding sports wagering here in the United States and turn it over to the states to elect whether they want it or not. We're seeing the movement, and Commissioner Stern's going to speak on it later. And I just think there's, you've got the issues of the public trust and confidence of the wager that today is not insured. You got the professional teams moving in the direction, and there's just too much money, too much audience out there not to realize that potential. So I do think we're going to get there in the next 5 years. With regard to skill-based games, obviously we're in wait-and-see mode still. How do we monetize those games is obviously a challenge for all of us. How do we make sure the most skilled of those players don't get an advantage over the house is obviously a concern, or an advantage over other players is a concern, and not to run out the customer base because there's only so few that can win. So a lot of questions still to be answered, and I think we'll get some answers. Don't know what the outcomes are going to be, but I think in the next 2 years or so we'll know where this is going.
Yeah, you don't want to see the DFSization of casino games, whereby a small number of sharks just eat the masses, right? That's an interesting perspective. Mark, why don't you talk about these dynamics in your backyard, in your environment?
Well, okay. So there's been a lot of discussion in recent years about sports betting, and we've seen that federal encumbrances have fostered workarounds and substitutes like daily fantasy sports, and at least 2 states, Nevada and New York, have said DFS is sports betting, at least under their respective laws. So, but the facts and circumstances we're facing today lead me to believe that conversion of forces, I think, like the rise of millennials, the evolution of consumer tastes, and probably pressure to expand the scope of gaming in permitted jurisdictions will compel Congress to take action. The question is, when will that happen? So, but it probably will happen sooner rather than later too. I agree with that. I do want to add this, that social gaming will continue to be an important extension of our brand and this experience to consumers when they are away from the property. And in fact, we have a major initiative to announce that's underway right now. We have a partnership in the works with Ruby 7 Studios to do something like this. So we see other tribes also engaging in this. Mashantucket Pequots and San Manuel, for example, are investing in social gaming components. And so I don't think social is a trend that will be reversed, and that kind of leads us down the road till we get to sports wagering, perhaps. Who knows?
Renato, what's your take on the evolution of these products?
Yeah, allow me to take a little different angle. So let's put it this way. First of all, I'm not in condition to tell you or anticipate what regulation will be like in 5 to 10 years, and whatever we'll be able to say that today wouldn't matter very soon. What I can tell you is that based on the market research, customer and player research that we've run, if we really want to attract younger generations to casinos or into the gaming business, there's a number of things that are mandatory. So one is introducing new, let's say, product categories, very much like sports betting and skill games. A second element that has to be put in the game is the recognition factor, as I call it. So you need to have leaderboards, opportunity to share with your friends and with your enemies what's your position there in any kind of category you may want to invent. And third, you need to rely more on mobile technology. So if regulation in different states will drive an opening in these areas, I think we may be having a big opportunity to expand the customer base. And again, based on the observation that we have, I think there's a positive mood about it. I mean, it may take some more time, but I still feel very positive.
Interesting. So, last question that I'm going to pose, and then we're going to throw it out to the audience for a little bit of Q&A. We have about 10 minutes left here. This will be a quick one, and a bit of a selfish one. As a professor who teaches, we hope, the future of this industry, and as somebody who runs, we run an executive development program every November up in Lake Tahoe. Actually, many of your employees have been attendees of this program, and all of the attendees at that executive development program want to be the three of you someday. They aspire to be atop the food chain, as we've referenced it. What advice would you give to that aspiring individual in this industry, again, especially against such a complicated managerial backdrop, especially against such an interesting and uncertain and global future? What would you tell my students? Renato?
Yes, I have my quote,
Okay.
which is not Master Yoda's.
It's not Yoda's, okay.
But it's very similar. So I once met, when I was very young, a Japanese professor. His name was Jiro Tokuyama. And he told to me this very short set that appears as a tribute, which is destroy your past glory. And he would mean destroy your past glory.
That's hard.
He would say, anytime you wake up, anytime you see yourself in the mirror, think to back all your counters to zero. Forget everything worked well in the past, and be open to new suggestions, new ideas. And do not rest on laurels, as we may consider.
That's so hard because we all become intoxicated by our glories.
We got spoiled.
It's brilliant. I love it. Tim, what do you got?
For someone in their 20s wanting to get into the hospitality gaming industry, I would encourage them to learn the business from the ground up early in their careers, and learn how to deal. Learn how hard housekeeping is to keep rooms up. Work in the food and beverage areas, and really learn what delights and inspires customers to be loyal to what you're trying to deliver. It is invaluable as you go up the organization. One, to really appreciate what the team members do. We have 18,000 at Penn National, and you really gain an appreciation and the importance of your human capital in the organization. I think that as a leader, and I had the opportunity to do that 30 years ago, as a leader, that really has helped me connect with the organization, create a culture that I think is respectful to everyone that's doing their job.
It's interesting. Mark, how would you advise these folks?
Well, he does a great job of educating folks in gaming management. Lots of talent out there. It's a great nexus for that, and we're the beneficiary of that. I think what's unique is that there needs to be a recognition, and I don't know if you get this injected into the curriculum, or if this is done through extracurricular means, but people who think they might want to work in the tribal gaming industry need to have some grounding, some understanding in the nation's history of tribes and where they're going and how it's different. I spoke to the longer term thinking that we're engaged in as tribal leaders. That flows down through the entire organization, if you will. So everybody that's going to be that moves through the gaming industry and into tribal gaming should understand. First of all, there's a lot of bad information and history about tribes out there, and they should avail themselves of good information along the way, and understand they're going to be part of this continuum, this trajectory of a people, of a tribe, who at one time the laws of the United States for our Indian people did not exist. So the fact that we're still here and Indian gaming is one thing that has really worked economically to help us back toward helping ourselves, self-reliance. That it's something fundamentally different than the pure corporate motive that exists outside of Indian gaming. So I would encourage people to understand that fundamentally at the outset there's a difference there, and to explore that. There's ways to do that and find out what they are.
Well said.